Hey book friends, it's Dustin from Modern Metaphysicae, and today I thought we could hang out and take a trip through William Blake, The Complete Illuminated Books by Thames and Hudson. As always, if you're interested in picking up a copy of this book for yourself, you can find a link where you can grab one down in the description box below. Down there you'll also find links to all of my social media where you can reach out and connect, as well as a link to my personal website where you can book a tarot reading with me, read some of my blog posts, or even purchase some of my own handmade metaphysical goods. So be sure to check all of that out. Also, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. It really does help the community to grow. So let's dive into this really beautiful book. As you've probably seen on my channel, I recently did a review of the William Blake Tarot of Creative Imagination, and that's specifically why I wanted to showcase and share with you this beautiful book. This tarot deck is a really wonderful, beautiful expression of William Blake's work, and if you haven't seen the review of this deck and you are interested in it, I will put a link to it up here in the cards so that you can check that out. Now, if you are familiar with William Blake, you're probably most familiar with the work he did, or the works he did to illustrate Dante's Divine Comedy, which he actually did not finish doing. And that's not really what this book is about. But I do have a couple editions, actually, of Dante's Divine Comedy illustrated by William Blake. So if you are interested in these, let me know, because these are really beautiful books and I'd love to share them. So let me know down in the comments below if you'd love to see more of these books. I have the Taschen one, as well as the Arcturus Press one, which I think this one's out of print now, but it's huge and beautiful and gorgeously printed and illustrated. But this is what most people are familiar with when they've seen Dante's work. However, what a lot of people don't know is that Dante himself wrote, illustrated, and self-published a number of works and texts pertaining to his own philosophy, religion, and even some prophetic works that were published and printed during his life, and like all of his work, really went largely unnoticed, unfortunately. I talk a lot about the history of William Blake and the art history in the video on the tarot, so again, if you're interested in that, go check that out. But he, in general, was largely unrecognized, because during the period that he lived and worked, we're talking about the Enlightenment, and people were interested in the sciences, and art was interested in depicting nature and the human form as realistically as possible. And William's work was really more about religion and philosophy and God and all of these kind of nebulous concepts and ideas. And so, people weren't really hip on his work in his lifetime. But of course now he's widely regarded as, one of the masters of his time. And this book is a collection of his illustrated and illuminated works in facsimile, which is really amazing. And you'll recognize, if you're familiar with the tarot, you will recognize a lot of the artwork that was used in the tarot specifically from these works. So let's dive into this. It is published by Thames and Hudson. It is a perfect bound softcover book. I don't think that there is a hardcover edition of this. It's pretty simple in terms of its construction and presentation. Nothing crazy here. The book cover price is $49.95, but you can find it probably less expensive than that in a number of places. But it's a really well constructed softcover book. That being said, and it's beautifully and immaculately printed, and the inside is full color. So as we get into the book itself, you will see that we have a nice table of contents here, where we have the foreword, the introduction by David Bindman, and then we have the Illuminated Books. So these are all of the artworks that I was speaking to earlier that were both illustrated and written by William Blake himself. Then the thing that really makes this volume special is the transcripts of the texts themselves, and you'll see why and what I mean in a bit if you're unfamiliar with these works by William Blake. So it's a really well put together book. The introduction is lovely. It gives you a lot of historical context and things like that, which is great. One of my favorite things about this book is this timeline that they give you, which is a chronology of Blake and his times. I think a lot of people, when they look at artwork, and I'm talking all forms of artwork, sculpture, painting, visual arts, film, literature, poetry, anything really pertaining to the arts, theater. A lot of times we look at things for what they are, but we don't take into context what was going on in the world and what was driving the art, like what the undercurrent was. And the thing that I love about this book is that it gives you that, right? You get a description of Blake's life and his works alongside this timeline of what was going on in the world, right? And Blake lived, and worked basically from the late 1700s into the early 1800s, right? And it gives you all of the context, right? So, in 1811, he published a publication of Henry Crabb Robinson's William Blake book in Hamburg, and then in 1812, we have the war between Britain and the United States. French defeated in Spain and Russia, etc., etc. So, you get a worldview as well as kind of what he was working on and things like that, which I think is really cool. And then you get the books themselves in facsimile, which is really cool. So they are presented as they were. In these earlier books that are small and have very little text, they do give you a transcription here at the bottom of what is written, but later when we get into the really complexly illuminated books, especially some of his more prophetic works, you'll see that text is moved to the back of the books for easier reference and reading. So but the book is full color. It's really well printed. The details are fantastic. The thing that is really nice about this book is that at the top you always get a little reference as to what we're looking at. So this is All Religions Are One. And at the start of each book, it gives you a little bit of a historical background about the book that you're looking at, as well as where they're sourcing the images, because all of these were printed by hand by Blake himself, and his sort of claim to fame, what he really wanted to push artistically was the ability to print both text and image simultaneously, which really wasn't a thing during this time period, right? You have to remember that during this time period, and really back to the 15th century, if you wanted to print a book with both images and text, you would print the text first via typeset, and then you would have plates engraved, and then you would print the images separately. And what Blake really wanted to do was, and what he kind of really pioneered, was a way to do both text and image on the same plate and print them. And he did this through a version of engraving that he did with copper plates. And he was very successful at it. In fact, he's kind of one of the forerunners of doing that. But, you know, what he wanted to achieve was that feeling of old illuminated manuscripts where you had text and image as a whole piece, right? As a whole work of art, which was difficult to do in printing at that time. And because of that, because all of these books were handmade by him himself, oftentimes there's pages that change page numbers, or there's slight alterations from one to another. And obviously, them being this old, not all of them exist anymore. So in some cases, or some of them are damaged, right? So in some cases, you'll get part of the book from one collection or museum and part of a book from another collection or museum, but they do a really good job of telling you where everything is coming from. So that's really fantastic. Yeah, it's here we go. So this is when we get into so this is Songs of Innocence. When we get into more of these really detailed books that he did, the text for these, you can find these in a section in the back. We'll look at that here in a second. But yeah, they're really beautiful. Spring, one of his poems, which is really lovely. Now we're into Songs of Experience. Yeah, it just goes through all of his works, and you'll recognize like a lot of these borders and some of these images and things like that. That is what Ed pulled from to create and collage the William Blake Tarot of creative imagination. So, you know, if you're curious as to where those works and those art pieces came from, a lot of them, most of them, came from these texts, which again were written and illustrated and printed by William Blake, all on his own, which is significant. Here we're looking at the Book of Thel, which has some really beautiful illustrations. So again, here's that. You get that little page before each book that tells you where they came from. So this one is specifically from the Pierpont Morgan Library in New York, and this is specifically copy F. And then it gives you details about it, right? So this one, only 9 complete copies of the book are recorded, etc. But it's really beautiful, and I could literally sit and stare at these images and read the text for hours. There's some really profound things written in these books. Look, this is just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, here's some of his. These are black and white, obviously printed in color, but black and white works. This is his book America. I think these were done with wood block, if I remember right. So he didn't strictly work in that copper plate engraving style all the time. Here's his book Europe. Just really beautiful, beautiful stuff. I mean, he did a lot of work. So if you're looking for a volume that has a complete collection of William Blake's works, this is the one for you, because it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Really beautiful stuff in here. And the writing is just amazing. I mean, he hand wrote all of this in an engraving way so that it could be printed, which is just mind-blowing to me. It's just just amazing. And then, of course, the content of these pages is amazing. Look at that. Oh, it's gorgeous. This is from the book Jerusalem, by the way. So then as you go towards the back, of course, you know, and it does go chronologically through his works. So, and then as you get into the back here, let's see if I can find the start of the section. Yeah. So this is the start of the last section of the books, which is the transcripts. So all of these pages, right, here, what they have done is they've gone through and transcribed them in just plain text, so that, you know, if you find that difficult to read, you can come here and read the text and then look at the artwork and kind of go from there, which is really fantastic. It's just an exceptionally well put together book, immaculately researched. Everything's really well presented, and really is the kind of pinnacle of books, in my opinion, for William Blake. So if you are interested in a book about the works of and by William Blake, I would highly recommend checking this one out. Like I said, let me know what you think about this text and William Blake down in the comments below, and definitely let me know if you would be interested in seeing either of the editions of the Divine Comedy that I own. And I hope that all of you are doing well. And as always, thank you all so much for coming to hang out with me and check out this beautiful book. And as always, remember, everyone's fighting a battle that you know nothing about. So be kind. Bye, everybody.